arts, and not necessarily commercial music or commercial classical music or academics. I just wanted to share a few of my survival techniques that I've had to develop over the years. Very few were taught to me. It just was what I learned just to survive. And if I took my shirt off, you'd see my back, which is, bloody from all the knife wounds in the back. But those knife wounds, lately, for the last few years, I have some tough alligator skin that I've developed, and sometimes I don't even feel them, which is a good thing to do. It's very interesting because the experiences rather repeat themselves. And what I can tell you that happened 40 years ago, happened 30 years ago, happened 20 years ago, happened just last week. And I don't know if there are any conductors in the audience, but I conduct a lot. And no matter what orchestra you go to, if it's a world-class orchestra or a community orchestra, I guarantee the strings are going to play behind the beat. That's just what happens. I guarantee the trumpets are going to be too loud. That's what happens. I guarantee the trombones are going to be lovely people. That's what happens. It's within degrees, it's something that we all know. And the same thing is true in professional music, or maybe even academia, as Casey just shared me a story coming. So the stories and the situations are all the same, and the dynamics are all the same, and the trick is how you deal with them. And I can tell you one story, and if you think about the story enough, one story will get you through, which is, and it's actually very timely because of the Olympics. A while ago, I used to do all the Olympic music for all the Olympic skaters. Not so much in competition, but their show music that they would do on television or around the country in tours. And I was speaking to a very, very famous, one of the most famous skaters in the world at that time. You may not know him now. His name is Scott Hamilton. And Scott, I said, Scott, you're in the Olympics, you're at the biggest thing of your life, and millions of people are watching you, and you're skating, and you jump, and you fall. And all those people are watching you. What do? And Scott said, you get up. And I thought, I'm saved. That is a really, really profound statement. I mean, everyone has said it too. Pick yourself up, dust yourself up, start all over again. But for some reason, that particular metaphor really landed for me. And one more thing I'm going to say up front, and then you'll see how it applies, is if a door is locked and bolted, you can bash it down as much as you want. You can really bash it down, but you won't get in. All you have to do is go around it. And there it is. And that's actually an interesting thing I do in composition when I tell some students that I do it myself. If you're struggling on something as a composer, it's just not working, or a lyric, something like that, it's just not working. You're not pushing yourself through it. Okay, stop. Do something else. Go around it. Say I'm not going to try this way. I'm not going to try to push it in first person. What would happen if I try in third person? I'm not going to try a fugal theory here. I'm going to try something else here. So when you get to that obstacle, you could either push, or you can probably move it forward if you really push it hard enough, or you can just say, hey, this way. And for me, 9 out of 10 times, it works. Now, of course, these are just little theories. They sound like, an AA meeting. Hi, my name is Glen. It's not, but truth is truth. So I'm going to tell you a story, and I told this to Casey. This is about the Lullaby Project, which is now called Hopes and Dreams. I'll tell you about that project because it's one of my most favorite I've ever participated in. I get a call on the phone 2 years ago from a very, very, very successful, world-class famous mezzo-soprano named Joyce DiDonato. And I didn't know Joyce very well. I worked with her a little bit, but it wasn't a very intimate experience. Anyway, she called me. Hi, Glen, it's Joyce DiDonato. I said, oh, well, that's very exciting. Hi, Joyce DiDonato, so I'm very excited. And she said, would I want to come to a concert of hers tomorrow? And I said, well, she's invited me, I'm going to come to her concert. And I assumed it would be the stuff that she does so well, her Baroque music, Purcell or whatever, or because of that, I walk into this room full of a multicultural, multi-diverse group of people, mostly women, with babies crying, and I went to this concert. Now, what was this concert? Carnegie Hall has an outreach program, and you all know what the word outreach means, right? Everyone knows outreach. So Carnegie Hall knows that there are studies that if you work with women at risk in prisons or in hospitals and recovery centers, and their mothers, and you get them to write lullabies to their children, there's a bonding experience that happens with their kids that doesn't usually happen with them because of the challenges. So Carnegie Hall and their outreach program take composers into the prisons, into the rehab centers, into the hospitals, and work with the mothers to write lullabies. They get the mothers to write the lyrics, they show them how to form them, they write the music to it, and it's a very, obviously a beautiful thing. And that's what the concert that I was seeing. I was seeing a concert of lullabies written by incarcerated women with Carnegie composers, performed by the mothers and other singers and Joyce, and this is what I was invited to. Well, of course, it was incredibly moving. You know, tears were rolling down my face, and it was so beautiful. Babies crying, mothers singing. And afterwards, I was introduced to the Carnegie people through Joyce, and I went up to Joyce and said, oh my goodness, this is so fantastic. I'd like to produce a record of this. And she said, well, that's why we invited you. We were hoping you'd say that. And I said, okay, well, I would like to do it, but here's what I want to do. As much as I loved how the mothers were singing, I think I can get you great celebrity singers and celebrity artists to perform these songs. And that would take the project to a different level. And they said, well, gee, if you can do that, we love it. And I said, yeah, I probably can do it. I mean, I don't know what success rate I'll have, but I'll ask around. So I had a very big success rate in getting people to do this, because once I sent them an email and told them what the project was, everyone said, I'm on. So I got the cast was, as Casey said, I'll try to go alphabetically, although that's going to be hard anyway. Fiona Apple, Natalie Merchant, Roseanne Cash, Patti LuPone, Joyce, of course, one of the great new sopranos, Pretty Yendi, great Nigerian world music person who I didn't know, but my friends knew very well, Angelique Kidjo, a great Latin artist named some things now. I spent, before I stopped doing popular music, I spent 30 years doing it. And I did it at a very high level, which I was very happy about. And one of my most favorite things I've ever done was I conducted the last special tribute I'll do Sammy Davis, that Sammy Davis was going to do. Now, my generation, so I know this generation, doesn't really get who Sammy Davis was, but he was a megastar and mega talented and legendary. I mean, this guy was talented and could do anything and beloved. But by the time this special was happening, I think it was 92, I'm not really sure of the date, the dates all just blur together. He was an old guy who Billy Crystal made fun of, and you know, he was like a joke. That's what happened. To the generation who didn't know how spectacular he was. So my colleague George Slaughter, who produces, I've done a lot of shows with him, was able to sell a TV show celebrating Sammy's 50th year in show business, well, 75th year in show business, some big thing. And the network who bought it said, we'll buy it and we'll pay you for it, it'll be great, but we need it to be something called talent contingent, which means we're only going to put it on the air and we're only going to do it if you get these people to be part of it. So once you have a show, you can go to the people and say, we're doing this show, would you like to be in it? It's very hard to go to these people and say, well, we're thinking about doing a show, would you like to be in it? So you really have to have a deal in place, but it's really a deal that's not really a deal unless they say yes. So Sammy was not considered the hot thing to do. So George sold the show, and the first bookings that we were able to get on this show were Tony Danza, Whitney Houston at the height, Michael Jackson, who was right off of Thriller, the biggest star you could be. Maybe Eddie Murphy, I forgot what it was, right? I certainly remember it was Michael Jackson and Whitney. That had to happen, or else the money wasn't going to be there and George was going to do it. All right, so we go, we do it, we do it. Somehow Whitney Houston, so no one was going to do the show. This was not happening. They weren't returning phone calls. Then it was announced that Sammy had throat cancer and was probably only going to live a couple more months. Well, that turned everything around. All of a sudden, everyone wanted to be on this show. Everyone. So we got, at that time, Magic Johnson and Eddie Murphy, Bill Cosby, Whitney said yes, Shirley MacLaine, Goldie Hawn. It was very, very big. But we didn't have Michael Jackson. And who would be a celebrity now that would be at that level of fame that he had? I don't think anyone right now. I mean, we're talking Elvis, we're talking the Beatles. Michael was that big at that time. Okay, George didn't have it. And he told the network he did have it. So the show was going along, and everything was going, and everything was happening. And a day before the show, we did not have Michael Jackson. So the writer on the show knew Michael from when he was Jackson 5. He used to write for them. And they went out to his house in Neverland and got him to commit to do the show. So that was going to happen, maybe. What was he going to do? Okay, we don't know. The writer for the show wrote a poem about Sammy Davis, about how he was there to open up all the doors. Michael wants to do that song, which is not a song, it's just a poem. So that night, the night before the show, about 10 o'clock, Michael Jackson comes to the rehearsal room. And it's this enormous shrine, it's called the Shrine Auditorium Rehearsal, where they have ballrooms. And it was Michael, 2 bodyguards, me and Buzz. Let's write a song. So we wrote that night this song called You Were There. Me, Michael, and Buzz at the piano. Okay, and I'm very, very good with celebrity. I've been around it all my life, nothing phases me. I couldn't breathe. I was so famous. I mean, the fame was, and I was going to write a song with him. Okay, we wrote a song. And then he went to Neverland, and Buzz went home, and I had to get it orchestrated and copied and on the music stand for a 10 o'clock rehearsal the next day. So guess what I did? I had it orchestrated and copied, and it was on rehearsal for the next day at 10 o'clock because there was no choice. And Michael was on the show, and that was, again, George not giving up. He was, and George always says to me, which I always repeat, well, a no is really more of a maybe. And if you think of it that way, no. Oh, he said maybe. So we'll play, we'll lower the lights. I brought that clip. I didn't bring the clip. It's on YouTube. So have a look at Michael singing You Were There. And conduct Frank Sinatra's last special on TV. In fact, Frank was sitting in that audience there and said to the producer, "Never do that for me. If you do that for me, I'm going to kill you." So, as 10 years later, when he was old, he wasn't going to kill him so much. So we did this Frank Sinatra tribute.